Right, we're just waiting on the ball now to be kicked by Cleary.
Half forward line, Coburg into attack. But mark there, and it's Cleary getting it away from Beattie. Deep, leaning over the top of Beattie. Cleary, quick snap, and it might be there. It's another goal to Coburg.
So Phil, could you just share some of your memories that you shared with Vicki here at the club back when you were playing?
Well, you know, my 200th game was here in these very rooms. And I reckon I was just about here after the game, full of people, just full of people. And we went upstairs. That day we beat Frankston here, and they were one of the top sides. We had a great game, and I was about 34 at the time, and I had a good game. I kicked a couple of nice goals down this end of the ground. It was very exciting. Crowd was, you know, jumping out of the trees. And after the game, we went up into the rooms and we had a celebration at some point that night in the old mezzanine. It's changed now, but it was full of atmosphere. You know, those were days when people smoked and, you know, there's atmosphere everywhere. I mean, literally. And Vicki was there. And I remember turning at one point, I just vividly remember she had the cake in her hand with the candles on it. And I never forgot that, and I actually wrote about it some years later, so I haven't just invented it in recent times. I recorded it not long after in something I wrote. So it was a beautiful moment with her face against mine. She was 25 years of age, and she was such a woman of substance and spirit, you know. So there was Vicki, and I met her again. I obviously spoke to her more times after that, and I met her again in the car park just out here before the last game of the season. And we went on to win that game, but we missed the finals, and she was laughing and joking with my two daughters, Sarah and Beth, who were at the time about 7 and 6. And she jumped off the tram going up Sydney Road. She'd seen us walking across Sydney Road, and she jumped off the tram and ran through the car park, and she was yelling out, Philip, you know. I turned and there she was. So that was a beautiful moment. And, you know, sadly, a week later, she was dead. We lost Vicki at the end of '87, and I was finishing as a player. But I went on to coach 2 premierships the next 2 years, and I look back now and think, you know, that was kind of remarkable, really, and probably a tribute to my family, to my mum and dad, and the spirit they generated. And Mum always said to me, I want you to continue on. And even in '87, I commentated in the finals only 2 weeks after Vicki. But Mum said to me, I want you to do that. I don't want you to stop. Yeah. You know, we've still got to go on with life while we remember Vicki. And it was quite powerful that we should win the premiership. Look, I can tell you that in 1988, before the grand final in the rooms at Windy Hill, I had Bob Hawke in attendance. We had Bob Hawke there. And I looked to the players and I spoke to them about Vicki and said, nothing will bring Vicki back, but a victory would bring some comfort to my mum and dad and my family and to me, so I hope we can do it as well. And we did. And Bob Hawke came into the rooms after the game and he commented on the speech I delivered before the game. So I suppose I'd put it this way. Vicki and Mum in particular, and Dad of course, but as the 2 women were an inspiration for me in those years. And I think I coached really well in '88, '89.
Yeah. And what do you think this Sunday's game would mean to Vicki and other victims of violence?
Vicki was an ebullient woman, full of life. She was not egotistical, she was not self-centred. She loved animals, she loved plants, she loved her mother, they shopped together. If she bounced into the room now, she'd be full of life and fun, and she'd, how are you going? Oh, you're talking to my big brother about football. Yeah. That's what she'd be like. I think her spirit will be with us out on the ground. It'll envelop the ground, and it'll give us a chance to reflect on her significance in the campaign to stop violence against women, because she is and was an inspiration to me, and it was a seminal case. The trial in which her killer was found not guilty of murder under the old provocation law changed the narrative around criminal justice in Australia and began a serious debate. So She is significant, and Sunday will remember her significance. But, as you point out, we'll remember all the women. Lots of women, even locally, that we lost. You know, there's a young man, Tarang Chawla, who lost his sister Nikki in Brunswick only a couple of years ago. We'll remember Jill Maher, of course, but we'll remember many, many other women who've lost their life to violent men, and that's the importance of the day. So it's not just about Vicki, but she's going to symbolise that.
Yeah. And what's the one kind of message or learning that you would like people to take away from the day?
Well, I'd like every man on the terrace, and if you were standing on the terrace alongside a man, your dad, your brother, some bloke who you like, I'd like those men to be thinking about what their role is in the campaign to stop violence against women, and to think about what courageous men, we admire courageous footballers, think about what a courageous man really does in life and how he respects the rights of women. Because the violence against women is a question of respect, and it's a question about the rights of women being usurped by men. Men have to get over this notion that they own and control women. So I want those men to reflect on how they can be different kind of men, how they can be modern men, and they can be together in the campaign to stop this horrific violence. We had another woman shot in Wangaratta just last night, I think. The story's unfolding. Another woman, I think in Tasmania, drenched with petrol and set alight by a man. I mean, it's horrific. These are shocking things. So the good men generally have to take a stand.
And is there any support or advice that you can offer to those in the community that are suffering at home or in relationships right now? Yeah,
I mean, of course, I'd be saying to women everywhere, if you're living with an aggressive, bullying, abusive man, then you have to get out and you have to seek help. Don't hide it from your friends. Don't hide it from a brother or a father or a man or other professionals. You must go and seek assistance because, and it's not your fault. I want to say to women, it's never your fault that a man is violent, but we've had a bad narrative historically in the courts, in the media, in football clubs that have blamed women for violence inflicted upon them. We have to stop that. So I say to those women, trust us, we know that it's not your fault. And I appreciate it, and the campaigners respect your rights. And that's what it's about. It's about the human rights of a woman.
Thank you so much for your time, Phil. We really appreciate you coming back to Coburg here and sharing your incredible story and all your support and offerings of advice.